We'll break into that to bring you some breaking news now from the US House. Let's cross live now. And the applause you see there is the applause for the new House Speaker, Mike Johnson, who has been voted in as House Speaker after just one vote. So he was voted in on the second go. He has now been re-elected as Speaker of the House of Representatives. Let's have a listen.
The state of New York has received 215. And the Honorable Tom Emmer of the state of Minnesota has received 1. Therefore, the Honorable Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives for the 119th Congress.
There we have it, the official confirmation that Mike Johnson has been voted in as House Speaker again. He's been re-elected after it initially seemed like he would lose the first round. We are hearing that 2 Republicans changed their votes in order to support Mike Johnson. Now, let's just have a quick look at what's happening. You can see there that he won by a razor-thin majority, and that is the whole point here. It was a difficult win for him because of the way in which the House is split. But it was an important one because, of course, today marks the start of the 119th Congress, and Republican majorities are in both the House of Representatives and the Senate. And this should make things as smooth as possible for President-elect Donald Trump and his return to the White House later on. The US hasn't seen a unified control of all 3 branches of government, actually, since 2017, when President Trump was last in office. So this was one of the first steps or obstacles that the Republicans had to overcome, because their majority in the House was, of course, a majority, but not really by much. And this was, as I mentioned, the first test, because the House cannot certify the election results, putting President Trump as the winner, or even pass any laws until lawmakers have selected their next speaker, who is, of course, the leader of the chamber. So Mike Johnson has been officially re-elected as Speaker. And what this now means is that things will be able to move forward in terms of what lawmakers can do, in terms of certifying those election results. Now, the Republican Party, of course, has had previous difficulty in getting through speakerships, but this is something that now they can celebrate and they can move forward with. Now, as I mentioned earlier, President Trump has backed Mike Johnson. He is the guy that he has put forward. He is the one that President-elect Trump wanted to take on this job. And after, actually, I think it's more or less 1 hour or so of voting, I believe, and a bit of arm twisting between different House representatives, a bit of quiet talking and deal making, I'm sure, that we saw earlier on. It has now been confirmed that Mike Johnson is elected or re-elected as the Speaker of the House. Let's show you the moment once more.
Mr. Self, Johnson.
Let's cross live now and speak to Rowan Bridge, our correspondent in Washington. And Rowan, I think you predicted this, didn't you, really? And we've seen this happening now. Mike Johnson is re-elected. What does this mean now for, US politics moving forward?
Well, I mean, I think this is a significant victory in some ways for Donald Trump. It means that his influence has paid off to some degree, and he has got a speaker in place who is aligned with Donald Trump and his agenda going forward. And this means that we'll have the official certification of the election results on Monday, and that Congress will be able to start functioning as it normally would do. And Donald Trump will be able to start putting legislation forward and moving his agenda forward. And that is a huge relief for Donald Trump. I think what he and a lot of Republicans were keen to avoid was the sort of circus of endless rounds of voting that had been seen before, which kind of made the place look a bit of a joke, frankly. What this means is that Mike Johnson has secured that role, and he will now be able to control the legislative agenda of the House of Representatives going forward.
So does this make, as you mentioned, things easier for Donald Trump going forward?
I mean, I don't think Donald Trump is necessarily going to get things all his own way. There are limits to his influence that he has. You know, some congressmen are pretty independent-minded, but clearly this is one of those moments where some of Donald Trump's or Mike Johnson's critics have kind of looked down the barrel and ultimately blinked at the very last moment, having made their point. You know, some of them voted against Mike Johnson, but then changed their vote before the tally was sort of officially counted. And I think they clearly wanted to make a point about their unhappiness, and I suspect they are going to make that going forward. You know, Mike Johnson put out a tweet in the hour before the vote, sort of talking about the need for fiscal responsibility. And I think what Mike Johnson's hardline critics are going to be wanting to do is hold his feet to the fire over that issue and make sure he is as conservative as he was talking about in that tweet when it comes to spending going forward.
And what was it that changed things for him? Because I noticed that there were two Republicans, I believe, who then switched at one point.
Yeah, I mean, the key bit was at the last minute where two of those who voted against Mike Johnson voted for him. That meant that there was one vote against Mike Johnson. That was the minimum he could afford and still be elected as Speaker of the House. Now, I suspect what went on was a degree of arm twisting by other congresspeople on the floor, saying to them, listen, you know, we need to get this through. We want to be able to move forward with a legislative agenda. We want to be able to achieve things, and not for this to sort of descend into rounds of voting and sort of the public seeing this Republicans as a bit of a joke, you know, for it to descend into a circus again. I'm sure, you know, and there was a lot of pressure coming on right from the top, from the president. You know, before the vote today, the word was that Donald Trump had been making phone calls behind the scenes to try and twist people's arms. And I suspect what you saw again in the last hour or so was yet more arm twisting of people to try and pressure them to do the right thing, as Republicans would see it, and vote for Mike Johnson as Speaker, which they have ultimately done.
OK, Rowan, thank you very much indeed for that.